wonderful demonstration of how to cook a spaghetti squash, since we're growing a lot of these in the garden, and it's really great to have this time of year. Spaghetti squash and all of your winter squashes, just so you know, you harvest them around this time. You wait for the vines to completely die away, and then they'll stay for months if you just keep them in a cool space. So you'll have them for a lot of the winter, which is really nice. So a spaghetti squash can be hard to cut. I already kind of prepped this one, but we're going to want to cut it down the center like so, and I didn't do a perfect job of this, and that's okay. It'll still taste the same. The other thing that you'll notice about the spaghetti squash is that there's a big chunk missing out of here. So there's a lot of food waste around things not looking perfect or not being perfect, and this had a bad spot in it, so I just cut the bad spot out as best I could, and then I'm going to get the rest of it out now that I've cut it in half, and it'll be a lot easier to just kind of scoop off that part that doesn't look so great, and the rest is perfectly edible, so it's as simple as that. We don't have to waste the whole thing just because we had one bad spot in it. So the next step is to just scoop out the seeds from the middle. You can roast your seeds if you'd like to separately, but just either way, you can throw this in your compost bin. Another trick that I like, which I don't have with me right now to use for this, is sometimes I'll use like a serrated grapefruit spoon, because it cuts through this meat in the middle really well and kind of cuts down on your time of getting everything scooped out of there. Scooped out all of the seeds and the meat in the middle of this. If you're interested in roasting the seeds, you would just separate the seeds, and then I like to spread them out on paper towels and kind of use the paper towels to dry them off a little bit, and then you would just spread those out on a cookie sheet and spray them with some oil and a little bit of salt, and you have a nice crunchy snack. Roast them like you would anything else, so on 350 for, I can't remember exactly, but probably about 10 minutes, and then just keep checking them. And then we're going to do something very similar with the spaghetti squash. So here I have, actually this is an oil spray can, so if you would like to have a spray oil to get more of a mist and more evenly spread the oil on what you're cooking, this is an environmentally friendly way to do that. These are really easy to find, and you just, the lid screws off, and you dump your, I actually have avocado oil in this because it's a good high heat cooking oil, and so you avoid the aerosol, but you get the same benefit of it. So then you just pump it, and you just pump it until it kind of comes to a stop, and then you just use this to spray on now. Sometimes mine gets a little bit clogged up. I probably need a new one, honestly. I've had this one for a while, but it still more evenly distributes the oil. And also sometimes when I first fill it up, it does this a little bit more too. But, if you try to dump oil in there right from the bottle, you get too much and it gets really concentrated, and then it makes it kind of mushy, and you definitely don't want mushy squash. So what's really nice about this is it's more of an al dente experience. So it's called spaghetti squash because after we cook it, we'll just take a fork and pull our fork through it, and it will create spaghetti noodles, but they're more firm than like an actual spaghetti noodle would be. My husband actually prefers this to a real spaghetti noodle. So I have my oil sprayed on there, and then I'm just gonna put my salt and pepper on. Now you read different things about how to cook this. Some people like to cook it in a little bit of water face down on your tray, but you can also keep it face up, so it depends on what you're going for. I like to do that because I like it to get a little bit crispy on the top, but if you don't want that, you can just turn it over on the tray. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll turn it face down to cook it, and then at the very end, I'll flip them over so that it gets a little bit brown on the top. Okay, it's as simple as that. So I'm either going to cook them face down on 350. I'm going to start these on face down, and then I'll slide it. I'm going to set this for about 30 minutes. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to check it with a fork. I'll pierce it with my fork to see if the fork goes through and how firm it still is, and then I'll judge whether or not I want to throw it back in for a little bit longer. And then, like I said at the very end, I like to flip mine up so that it gets kind of brownish on the top. So we'll come back and check that out in about 30 minutes. We have our beautiful spaghetti squash. You can see it cooked very nicely. I recommend letting it cool for a little bit before you try to create the noodles, just because it's really hot and will burn your fingers. But so it browned really nicely on the top, and all we have left to do is to take your fork and you just pull it through. And this actually cooked a little bit too long, you can see, and it creates these noodles. Now what you can do, because this cooked for a little bit too long, I didn't make it here in the 30 minutes like I said I was going to. It's a little bit softer, and you can even use this as a boat. And what a lot of folks like to do is to just use this to mix up with like a meat sauce, just like you would. But you can see the noodles that it creates, and these become your spaghetti noodles. And then you would just put your favorite marinara on top and enjoy just like you would spaghetti. And it's that simple. And these will just, as you run the fork through, it just creates those noodle-like pieces of squash. So it's that easy.